I've been in the finishing industry for 42 years. So enough about me. This is our facility at Rockwall, Texas. It's 150,000 square feet under roof, and it contains all of our manufacturing, design, as well as our RP exhaust filter business. And Col-Met is the only booth manufacturer that has its own exhaust filter manufacturing business. We have three main business segments: our core and our catalog business, which is all of our standard booths and ovens, etc. Our engineered products division, which basically does all your special booths. If you got a special design that you require, or you have a process finishing system that you want to put into the works, then this is the guys that will be doing all of that type of work. And then we have our RP filtration products, which we mentioned earlier, which is ran by Trey Peavy. Overview, we're going to look at today at the function of a powder booth, the types of Col-Met powder booth sizing, and other considerations such as environmental rooms, air movement, compressed air quality, grounding, and filter replacement. So let's talk about what the basic function of the powder booth is. It's, of course, to contain the powder in the process. And you want to provide a safe environment. You want to collect and recover all the oversprayed powder. And then one of the main things in my little bailiwick of wanting to see a booth do is enhance the application efficiency of all the application equipment. Types of powder booths. Col-Met has the PB series, multi-stage filtration, and the Col-Met RPB series, which is the cartridge filtration. We also have the EPB series pass-through style powder booth for high volume conveyorized projects. Let's talk about the PB series just a little bit. It's a batch style entry level booth. Low volume applications. You don't want to try to run a high volume in this booth. It has very basic controls, no VFDs. You can get a VFD as an option. It's a spray to waste booth only. You cannot reclaim powder in this booth. You have multi-stage filtration, a blanket filter, a pocket filter, and a final filter. The RPB series booth is a batch style entry-level booth also, but it's good for low to medium volume production rates. You can have conveyor slots in this booth and a conveyor running through it. It has spray to waste or reclaim of one color. Powder collected below the cartridge filter in a pan or a fluidized bed if you are reclaiming a color. Then the RPB style series booth also has multi-stage filtration, cartridge filter, and a final filter. Controls are NEMA 12U, UL, and ETL listed. You have the auto manual filter pulse down cycle. You have a magnehelic gauge for cartridge monitoring. Of course, it comes standard with the VFD, and you have a pressure switch for your final filter. This is our lab booth. It's a good little booth, solidly made, and it can even have small conveyor openings in it if you wanted to run a conveyor through it. It's mainly used for running lab operations of very, very small parts operations that you don't want to change color in another booth to run a small series of parts through. The EPB series booth is a high production pass-through powder booth. It has three standard sizes. It utilizes LED lighting like all of our booths do now, and spray to waste or reclaim. Multiple booths or collectors can be used to meet color change needs and requirements. So basically, if you have more than one color, you can do a roll-in, roll-out collector for each color that you're going to utilize in this booth. Same as the RPB, we have multi-stage filtration. You have a cartridge filter and a final filter. Controls are very similar to the same as the RPB. NEMA 12UL, auto manual pulse down, magnehelic gauge for cartridge. You got your VFD and your pressure switch. I'm going through these kind of fast because there's more important parts of this I really want to get into. So if you have questions about our booth products, you can obviously look online or type in a question. This is the EPB booth again, and we're talking about for a single booth, it's going to be always online. It can be a sprayed away booth or a reclaim of one or more colors. And you can color change when you color change, the system is down. So if you got, depending on the size booth, your color change in this style of booth can take from anywhere to 30 to 90 minutes. So while you're doing a color change, that is time you're not in production. So if you use another system that we have been in the industry for a long time, is the dual or multi booth. You move off, one booth is offline and one booth is online. You can spray it away, start reclaiming it, the same thing, and color change time is minimal because all you're doing is rolling booth A off and rolling booth B online, and at that time, you got a very fast color change of around 5 minutes or less, but be aware that that booth that you have just taken offline has to be cleaned and prepped for the next color. So that can take time, and you have to dedicate people to that. The EPB series, now we're coming out with the wedge style collector design, and what that's going to do for you is better sealing of the cartridge filter to the fan package, and as you can see, a much smaller footprint. This is typical line layout, 3-stage washer, dry off oven, goes through, powder booth is powder coated, and then goes into the cure oven and back over to the load unload area. So let's kind of summarize what we're talking about here. The 3-stage filtration, the PB, low production, no reclaim, high maintenance cost because you're going to be constantly replacing our cleaning filters. It is really a entry-level booth. It is for low volume and manual applications only. You do not want to try to put automatics in this booth. Has no VFD, so you have less control of your airflow. The RPB is a medium production booth. Has reclaim capabilities of one color. You have reduced maintenance costs because the cartridges and the finals will last longer. Entry-level users or experienced users have this booth, manual applications, and you can put automatics in here if the booth is sized properly. VFD included for precise airflow. The EPB pass-through powder booth is a high production booth, reclaim and multicolor change capable. You have reduced maintenance costs. Again, experienced users are with multiple colors. You can have automatics and or manuals in this booth. VFD is included. So now let's talk about how to size the booth properly. And this is one of the key things to do. Of course, you're going to design the booth for the largest part that you want to powder coat in this booth. So you want to design the booth with 3 to 5 feet around the product that you're going to put in the booth or the racks. Now, one of the other things you have to decide, how many products do I want to powder coat at one time, and how many racks do I want to coat at one time, and how many of those and how big are these racks or parts. So now we figured that up and we designed the booth around that. So we've come up with a booth in this particular case that we're talking about 8 foot high and 10 foot wide. So we want to keep airflow in that booth somewhere between 180 and 120 linear feet per minute. So we got an 80 square foot booth with 80 feet per minute face velocity. We're looking at 6,400 CFM. I would go up to a 7,000 CFM myself. 100 feet per minute is 8,000 CFM. 120 feet per minute gives you a requirement for containment air of 9,600 CFM. I would go up to a 10,000 CFM just to make sure I had plenty of good airflow and be able to move that airflow up and down with my VFD as I need. When you're doing a pass-through powder booth like the EPB style, you have to take into consideration every single opening in this booth. You got a conveyor slot, you got 2 product openings, you got 2 gun slots, or in this case, 4 gun slots, and you got 2 operator openings. In this particular booth, as you can see, you got 72.7 feet of square foot of openings in the booth. So at this sizing of this booth, you're looking at 80 feet per minute at 5,816 CFM. I'd go to 6,000. You round it up, never down, always round up. At 100 feet per minute, you got 7,270. You can stay at 7,000 or go up to 8,000 on this booth. At 120 linear feet per minute, you're talking 8,724 CFM of containment air. I would go to a 9,000. At 150 feet per minute, you're at 10,905. I would go to 11 or 12,000 CFM booth to make sure I had adequate containment air. Now, the one thing you want to remember when you're sizing for this style of booth is what the product is, how hot the product is coming into the booth. And if you got large booth openings, like a 7-foot high opening, by let's say by 3 foot wide, you want to make sure you have sufficient containment air. So you want to move that face velocity up to around 130 to 150 to make sure you contain the powder in the booth, because large booth openings always create issues. If you have a hot part coming into the booth, meaning it's around 250, 300 degrees, you can get a chimney effect. So if you don't have proper containment air, as you spray that part with that heated part with powder, the overspray powder would be just like a chimney going through a flue. It'd be going right straight out that conveyor opening at the top. So make sure you take these type of things into consideration. You notice that the little part down here at the bottom about additional guidelines, you want to make sure you allow 6 inches of clearance around the largest parts you're going to run through this booth, and you want to make sure you have a 36-inch minimum hook length. Other considerations that you want to take into consideration is the environmental room. What does an environmental room give you? And we'll go over these briefly. You got better control parameters. So let's say you want to keep your temperature between 60 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. You want to keep your humidity between 40 and 60% relative humidity, and you want to minimize your dirt and contaminants coming in. So what you do, you design the room with a positive pressure where a little bit of air is moving out of all the openings in the room, making sure no contaminants flow into the room. And by doing this, the benefits of this are better fluidization, better powder flow and material handling, better application charging. You have less impact fusion. You have better ability to get into your Faraday areas. And one of the main things that we'll do is increase your first pass transfer efficiency, which is always important on your application equipment. You want to make sure you minimize cross drafts in the room. You want to design the room properly so that you don't have a cross draft of like 60 feet per minute in this diagram show coming through the booth. It will take the powder right out the other end of the booth and move it right out of the room and all over your room. You want to make sure your air conditioning vents are put in the proper location so as not to cause a Venturi effect across any opening in the booth, which will also draw air out of the booth. You want to make sure all your doorways are closed or your windows are closed. You want to keep this environment as sealed as possible. We're going to talk about the replacement cartridges. Col-Met cartridges for our RPB and our EPB series booths. They're 52 inches tall. They're 12 3/4 inch in diameter and have a total filter media area of 397 square feet. That gives us a 2.5 to 1 air cloth ratio. So what that means, for every 2.5 cubic feet of cloth of air, I'm pushing 2.5 cubic feet of air through 1 square foot of filter opening. So that gives you your 2.51 to air to cloth ratio. You can look at each one of any Col-Met booth, and you're going to have about 1,000 CFM per filter. So you can actually count the filters in the booth and kind of say, hey, I got 8 filters in there. It's probably an 8,000 CFM booth. That would give you a good guideline for always figuring out how our booths are sized. Is filter seasoning required? Yes, it is. We use an 80-20 blend cellulose polyester filter, which is pretty much the standard in the industry across the board. About everybody uses the 80-20 blend. Are they the best? No, they're not the best, but they are a workhorse. We talked about the filter seasoning. Anytime you put in brand new cartridges in the booth, you're going to have very, very aggressive airflow. In the old days, the only way we could do this was we had damper systems in the booth, and we would close the damper all the way down to restrict the airflow and make the fan start cavitating and rumbling and shaking and jumping. But we had to do that in order to slow the airflow down so we could season the filters properly. In the Col-Met booth, because we have our VFDs as a standard in our RPB and EPB series booth, it's really, really easy to season the filters, as all you do is slow your airflow down on your VFD to 65 feet to 70 feet, linear feet per minute, and that will give you the ability to slowly season your filters. Make sure you leave your pulse down on. Do not turn it off, because if you turn it off, you will blind your filters too quickly, and they will not season properly. Other considerations to take into effect when you're designing your booth and your booth system is having good, clean, dry air. You're going to find out the two most important things in the powder system is clean, dry air and a good ground, and we're going to be talking about both of them right here. It is the end user's responsibility to provide clean and dry air to a powder booth, and we like to see a refrigerated or desiccant air dryer dedicated to the powder booth, not 550 to 1,000 feet away from the powder booth on another side of the building on a 110 degree day when it's really hot here in Texas and other parts of the country. If you have a refrigerated air dryer dedicated to your twin screw compressor and you're pushing air 1,000 feet across the building to get to the powder system, and it's 110 degrees, and that 32 degree dew point air coming out, traveling that far, what do you think is going to happen? It's kind of like your cold drink is going to start sweating in the pipe, and you're going to produce moisture back into the system. That's why we say have a dedicated dryer to your powder system. It is very important. After the air dryer, you need a coalescent filter package. This removes all your oil and large particulate out of your air stream. You want to make sure you got all that out, because you don't want the guns being clogged up or the filters getting damaged by particulate. The most common failure in any powder system is oil or water in the system. And if your end user does not properly install the refrigerator or desiccant air dryer, and we find oil in your system when we go over there, when you call us to come in for a warranty check, and we find oil or water in it that's damaged the filters, we will not warranty those filters. Nor will your powder application manufacturer warranty their powder application equipment if there's oil or water in the system. Other considerations is good ground. A good ground is critical. We like to see a 3/4 or a 5/8 inch diameter copper rod, about 6 to 8 feet long, driven into the ground. And then you'll see on your right there a small grounding strip. You put that on the booth, and you bring your one key ground wire into it, and you ground everything on that booth to that grounding strip. And you make sure that you maintain 1 mega ohm or less per NFPA requirements to have a good ground. You have to have a meg ohm meter. You cannot use a multimeter for this, so don't even try. It won't work. Have your customer invest in a meg ohm meter, or put enough money into the system that you can give him one for free and make him feel good. Questions?
All right, so now what we'll do at this point is before we get to the questions here, just wanted to remind everyone that there is a handout of this presentation, and it's right there on your toolbar where it says handouts. Download that before you log off on the webinar. And then what we're going to do now is we will go into some questions. Bill, we do have a few questions. The first one being, is it possible to spray both powder and liquid in the same booth?
No, you do not try to spray liquid in the powder booth. The cartridges, if it's in the RPB or the EPB booth, are not designed for liquid paint, and they will not properly extract it from the air. And also, in a powder booth, we're recirculating the air back into the building. We're not exhausting any air out of the building, so you would be filling up your building with VOCs. Bad idea.
All right. Is it possible to convert a liquid booth to a powder booth?
Absolutely. All you got to do is take the exhaust plenum off the booth, remove your ductwork, and then buy a Col-Met RPB collector, slide it into place, and put in filler panels, which we can supply for around that cartridge collector. Then you now have a powder cartridge booth.
All right, we have another question here. During the presentation, you mentioned quite a few times VFD. What is that, and how does it affect a powder booth?
VFD stands for variable frequency drive. Basically, what it allows us to do is have the VFD attached. It does two major things for you. One, it gives you a soft start, ramps up slowly, keeps you from getting big, large electrical spikes, which affect your electric bill of your end user. Other thing it allows it to do is be able to program the VFD to change speeds. We can go up, and we do that by megahertz. So we start at like 45 megahertz. We can go up to 60 megahertz or whatever the VFD is preset for from the factory. And we can change our fan speeds, which will allow us to season filters or slow the booth down for optimum application equipment. Basically, what I'm saying here is you want to design your booth, and you want to be able to set your booth up to run at a speed that will enhance your application equipment. So if you got automatic guns, you want to have that containment air down to low as you can to, one, contain the powder in the booth, and two, enhance the application equipment. If your airflow is too aggressive, you will literally pull your powder cloud away from your guns, and you will not get your good first pass transfer efficiency. That's why Col-Met booths are so well designed, is we can do this for you, and you can learn how to do it and quickly be able to change that speed in your booth to enhance your application equipment.
All righty, thank you. We do have a couple more questions here. How much material does it take to season the new filters?
Depends on how many filters you have in the collector, but normally if you set it up to run about 65 to 70 linear feet per minute, you'll probably be able to season it with about 100 pounds of powder.
Okay. All right, the next question here is, what is the max PSI that should be used for pulse filter?
You're looking at on a Col-Met powder booth, you want to be pulsing between 60 and 80 PSI.
All righty. And then I do see that there's one more person who has a question. Their hand is raised. I can't unmute you because the amount of attendees that we have on the call. So if you could please type in your question, then I will go ahead and we will address it for you. Right now, let's see, there's one more question here. Bill, what kind of powders can Col-Met booths reclaim?
Col-Met booths can reclaim all different types of powder. We have no restrictions on our types of powder that we can have sprayed in it. Polyesters, TGIC polyesters, urethanes, epoxies, functional powders. It makes us no difference. Always remember, though, whose ever application equipment your company sells, whether it be Wagner, Gema, Nordson, or whomever, if you do decide you want to reclaim powder, you will be getting their transfer pumps and their transfer systems for our powder booth, for the Col-Met powder booth that you sell. And we make adapter plates that will allow you to put any transfer pump on the fluid bed that you need.
Okay. Thank you. Another question, how do you know your filters are correctly seasoned?
Well, you will watch your static pressure on your booth, and that's the main thing that you're watching is when you're seasoning your filters is how your static pressure rises. So what you're doing is when you're seasoning your filters, you got the pulse down working, so you're working off your timer board, basically letting it pulse every so many seconds, and you'll be pulsing one filter per pulse down, one series of filters. And so basically what you're going to do is just make sure that you feed at least 50 to 100 pounds of powder to those filters at the proper airflow, and you will have a properly seasoned filter. Your static pressure should go up to about 1.5 inches to 2-inch range, and then it will stay in that range. And then you can go to the auto cycle of your pulse down, which will allow the pulse to build up to about 3.5 inches to 2.5 to 3.5 inches. And then the filters will start pulsing down and then pulse down till they get back to 1.5 inches or 2 inches. So that's just normally to be able to say I can give you a definitive answer exactly if it's seasoned properly. If you run between 50 to 100 pounds of powder through it, you will be seasoned properly.
All righty. Thank you so much, Bill. Right now, that looks like that's all the questions that we have. So just quickly before we log off here, just wanted to, on your screen, you'll see the Col-Met Who to Call list. This is a listing of your regional sales managers in your area. You can always contact them directly if you have any questions as well. On the right-hand side of this, you see the map there kind of showing who has what territories and areas. And Bill, could you go to the next slide, please? On this slide here, as I mentioned, on the right-hand side is the address for the Col-Met YouTube channel. We will be posting this webinar there tomorrow. And we have a lot of other videos. All the previous sessions that we've done are posted there as well. And then on the left there is just a little snippet to show you the Col-Met website, the quote request, because we get a lot of people asking, where can I quickly enter some information to get a quote from the inside sales team? You can quickly go to the website anytime, day or night, click on that quote request, complete the information, and it'll go to the inside sales team for a quote. And then, Bill, if you wouldn't mind, one more slide, please. Well, that may not be working, but there we go. This is a list, as I mentioned, of the webinars coming up. We have 3 more scheduled at this time, so please sign up if you haven't signed up yet. And we very much appreciate you joining us today. And if you have any questions, again, please don't hesitate to send me a note at marketing@colmetsb.com. Don't forget to download your handout that's there, which is a copy of the presentation. Thank you, Bill, for your help today, and we thank everyone for joining us today. This is the end of our webinar. Thank you.